some needle felted toadstools. We have 2 kits available from the website, or of course if you've got all your own wool tops you can do this with all your own supplies. We've got the Naturals toadstools, and then we have the magic ones, which I absolutely love. I love. So these are the 2 varieties. Today I'm going to needle felt one of these more natural ones. The instructions include instructions how to do a flat toadstool, a tall one, the base, and then I've stuck mine onto a log piece just so they stand nicely and they look a bit more rustic. So here is the kit in one of our cardboard boxes. When you open it up, you've got your instructions, your needle felting tips in the lid, such as always hold your piece on the foam. You've got your colours. We've got it in lightning, rust, chocolate brown, poppy red and grass green. 2 standard needle felting needles, a curl or 2, and your wooden disc. You will, in addition to this, need some craft glue. It can just be PVA glue, just for sticking the base onto your wooden log piece. First of all, we're going to make the flat toadstool. So that's this one here, made out of the rust. And we're going to use half of the wool tops. If you are using your own wool tops rather than using it from the kit, I would suggest around 3 to 4 grams maybe. So I've taken half of my rust and I'm just going to fold it into a kind of flat-ish rectangular shape. The width of the wool tops, so we're not shortening the width too much, and I am just going to stab so that it just starts holding. I like to always use a needle felting handle. It just makes it a little more comfortable. Now that it's holding, we need to create more of an oval. So where we've got these corners, I'm just going to start working those in. I'm just concentrating on working in those edges. And you can already see where you've got bits sticking out that you don't want. You stab those bits in and they very quickly disappear into the middle. It's just a case of stabbing it all nice and firmly, and you're aiming for something quite firm, and always flip it over, stab in all directions as well, not just straight down. I like to stab at an angle. I'm just going to work this until it's nice and firm. What you can also do to help the felting process along is just rub it in your hands a bit. That just helps compress the fibres and felt them up a little bit more. So I've been working at this for a few minutes now and it is really starting to firm up and go into a nice toadstool shape. We have, however, still got some kind of lines and direction where we rolled the wool tops up. Whoopsies. And we're going to get rid of those now. So we didn't use all of the rust up and we've still got some left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take tufts of it. So just the ends, I'm going to pull off and lay out. Kind of going to lay it in a circular-ish shape, just crisscrossing the fibres. Nice wispiness. So now I'm just going to pull the fibres apart slightly, just to break up some of that direction again. I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to lay my felted piece in the middle. Just going to fold the wool tops in all the way around, across. Now remember, one side of this is going to be the underside, so we're not going to see it. So where all this kind of messy fold is, you don't need to worry too much about that. And then the top of the toadstool here is going to be nice and smooth with no directional fibre. Well, there'll be some directional fibres, but not as many directional fibres. And just felt those nice wispy bits on. This is really going to help firm up the whole piece as well. So those wool tops of the wispy bits are pretty much felted on now. You may still have some little holes. Just give it a rub in your hands, and that's going to close up those holes from the needle. It's also going to just help get any of those fluffy parts away. It just helps smooth it all out. So I'm just going to take some of the lining and I'm just going to pinch the end off. It's just a very fine amount you need. In fact, that's going to probably do 2 spots. So I'm going to split that in half, pop that to one side for the next spot. Now I'm just going to break up these fibres, just to get rid of, again, that direction of the fibres. I'm just going to snap them up, and you can probably hear them breaking up. It's important to snap them rather than cut them. Cutting the fibres would give a really clean line. It would make it very difficult to felt. Snapping the fibres apart gives more split ends, and the fibres want to cling to the split ends more. Now, I'm just going to lick my hands a little bit because they're quite dry and cold. I'm going to start felting in my hand into a kind of circular shape. And I'm just going to hold it on the toadstool, and I'm going to stab around my edges first, taking care. When we're trying to do really defined things, we want to be careful and be very definite with our stabs. Just stabbing around the edge, and once you've defined your edge, that's when you can start working in the middle. So it's actually kind of 3D at the moment. It'll focus, there we go, you can see it's kind of 3D. So now, so now I'm just going to stab in the middle of that spot. Taking care when I'm stabbing as well, I'm not going to stab outwards. I'm just stabbing all those fibres in towards the middle. And remember to rotate your toadstool. And then repeat for the next one, breaking apart those fibres. It's up to you how many spots you do on the top. I'm probably going to go with about 5 on this one. So I've done 5 spots on this toadstool. I've done a couple of big ones and some smaller ones. Now we're going to make the stem. So I'm going to pop this to one side for now. What I'm actually going to do, because I was using this side of my foam for the darker rust fibres, I'm going to use this side, the nice clean side, for my lighter coloured fibres, just so I don't muddy up my white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tuft, a bit hard to describe a tuft, possibly a bit less than that. So, I don't know, about 10 centimetres plus your fluffy ends. And then what I'm going to do to help me define my halfway line is I'm going to go that way, but I'm going to stab a line about halfway. Now I'm going to fold the wool tops over and give it a rough stab. And now I'm going to roll in this direction. So I'm going to roll from here over to here. Again, using the foam for a little bit of friction to get a nice tight roll. The denser you can get your wool whilst rolling and folding, the less work that the needle needs to do. Now I'm going to take care, because we've got to thin a bit, and I'm going to stab about 2.5, maybe 3 centimetres up the stem. I'm going to felt this bottom end where we've got the fold. I'm going to felt that to be firm, but the top end up here, I'm going to make sure that I leave my fluffy ends. Again, you can use your hands to help compress those fibres and keep moving, because you don't want this getting stuck to your foam. So now my wool tops have felted about half of it. This end is felted, this end is nice and fluffy. I'm going to attach this to the top of the toadstool now, so I'm going to flip this over so that we've got the dark side. Spot side down, and these fluffy ends, I'm just going to fan them all open, giving them a bit of a tug so that we've really opened it down right to the top of the stem. And I'm just going to hold it onto the toadstool top. Just going to stab in the centre, just so that it's starting to hold on. Take care not to felt and stabbing all the way through. If you stab all the way through, what you're actually going to end up doing is these white fibres, you may end up pushing through to this side as the needle comes out. So we only need to felt using the bottom centimetre or so. Now that the stem's kind of holding on there, I can concentrate on doing the outside edge. And again, I'm stabbing in towards the middle, not the outside. It doesn't matter if some of this is a little bit wispy and see-through. Just going to kind of stab those fibres where I want them to go in. Whilst doing this, if you want a little crooked toadstool, so instead of it sitting at 90 degrees, if you pull the stem in one direction and then start stabbing, just holding the stem in that direction, very quickly your toadstool becomes a little bit crooked, which is how I have done this one. So this one's a little bit crooked. It's entirely up to you, but I think it gives it a bit of character. So that is my flat-ish flat toadstool done. Now we're going to move on to doing the taller toadstool, which is the red one on there or the yellow one on there. For that one, I am going to take my poppy red wool tops, and I'm going to take about the same amount that I did for the stem, so about 10 centimetres plus the fluffy ends. I'm going to just roll this. So my fibres are laying in this direction, and I'm going to roll in this direction, kind of make a bit of a tube. Okay, now stab just so that it starts holding. And now I want to make this more into an oval shape, so I want to felt these ends in a bit more. One end is going to be quite rounded and pointy. The other end we really want to felt in, so we get that tall toadstool shape. So I'm felting this bottom end in so it's really quite flat. Now making sure that I felt all of the top of the toadstool as well. Stabbing the fibres in the direction I want them to go. So I kind of want them to go in that way. So I'm angling my needle that way. So I've been working this for a while and it's really starting to firm up and hold its shape. But I'm just going to bulk out this bottom half a little bit. So I'm going to take a small-ish amount, maybe a bit more than that. Not too much. And I'm just going to wrap this around the fatter base of the toadstool, just to build up the base. So you want to keep the top pointier. Again, the tighter you can roll that on now, the less work you're going to have to do. That's really quite firm now. I'm happy with the shape of it. So I'm going to pop some spots on it, just like I did with the flatter one. Taking small amounts. Give it a roll. Hold it on and stab around the edge. And then repeat for however many more spots you would like. So I'm happy with the spots on that one. To do the stem for the taller one, take around about the same amount as you did, maybe a little bit less, for the flat toadstool. This stem is going to be a little bit shorter. Again, I'm going to flip it over onto my lighter side of foam. And the same as last time, I'm going to stab a line approximately halfway. Fold that over and give it a rough stab all over. Now I want to make this stem shorter than I had for the flat one. So now I'm just going to fold in that bottom centimetre or so again. So this is where our fold is. And stab all over just to get those fibres sticking to one another. And now I'm going to roll again across the direction of the fibres. Again, this is my fluffy end and this is folded. I'm going to felt the bottom centimetre or so. Being very careful of your fingers. So that's the bottom centimetre felted. I'm going to try and remove a little bit of this by ripping and breaking the fibres off, just so we haven't got too much bulk for attaching onto the base of our toadstool. So we haven't got much surface area on the base of the taller one. So this one's going to be a little bit harder to attach onto just because you can't pop it on your phone without it rolling around. And turn to the dark side. And again, fan that out, hold it on, just stabbing in at the base of the stem. So once that stem's holding on, your hands can be free to help move these fibres around. And you can see why you don't want too much fluff to have to stab in at this point. Just like I say, because your surface area of the base of the taller one is a lot smaller, so you've not got quite as much space to be able to hide the ends in. That's fine, we can just give it a good old stabbing in. That's really on there quite firm now. I'm going to pop this to one side whilst we do the base. So for the base, we've got our little wooden disc and some curls, which we put on at the end, grass green and chocolate brown. I'm going to put my felting foam to one side for now. I'm going to do a circle again, alternating my colours of the grass green and the brown. Now that I've laid them out, just how I did for the kind of web that I did for on the top of the toadstool, just going to break this up a little, flip it over, fold, kind of roll. You want this at the moment to be bigger than your felt disc, so we need to really condense these fibres down to fit that. Bring your foam back in, make sure you've got your dirty side, your dark side, and then bring these over. So you've got a nice mix of the grass green and the chocolate brown. So it looks like a grassy, muddy forest floor. Now that that's holding, I can start to round off my edges. So I'm still not completely felted at all, I'm still quite fluffy. But now that it's really holding, I'm going to start figuring out where I need to stab this in more. I quite like to be able to see parts of the bark on the base. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not stabbing the base, I'm just using it as a guide for where I need to get my ends in. So I now know I really need to felt in this corner here. And once I lay that on there, it's really starting to form a good shape there. And I just need to generally felt all of this side in more. So I've been felting this quite a while now, and it's really firmed up. Really not much squish in that. And sits on there quite nicely. So now to attach our toadstools to our little grassy mound, what we're going to do is take your first one, whichever one you'd rather, and just hold it against the base. just stab in around the base of the stem. This isn't going to be a permanent hold. We are going to reinforce it, but it's just so that it's holding and we can free up our hand to do other things. So it's just holding on there now, but we're going to reinforce that now. So if you take some of your grass green and some of your brown, or whatever colour you're using for your base, and just take little tufts of it. I'm going to break it up. I'm going to just place it around the base of that toadstool. So you can see it's quite fluffy at the moment. I'm just going to stab it in. It doesn't matter too much if it goes up onto the stem. Kind of makes it look slightly more mossy. So we're just stabbing it all the way around. It's probably a little bit hard to see. I'm just stabbing that all the way around, reinforcing that join. Because we had already felted the stem and already felted the base, essentially what you've done is you've tangled all these fibres together of the stem and tangled all these fibres together of the base, and there's kind of nothing to help them catch on to each other. So just putting some wool tops across the two helps to encapsulate it and just reinforce it there. It's very hard to felted fibres to felted fibres. That's why, like when we were attaching the stem to the top of the toadstool, we left the fibres fluffy for attaching. And I'm just going to repeat the same for the other toadstool, reinforcing that join once it's holding. Now that my two little toadstools are holding on there nicely, they're quite firm on there, and all the fibres have tangled them together to help them reinforce. I am now going to take my curls and I'm going to just lay these any which way around the base, just for a little bit of texture, almost a mossy base, or almost looks a bit like curly bracken or leaves. These won't felt in too much just because of the fact that they're curls. The locks, rather than a wool, obviously they're still wool, they just don't felt in quite as much. Yeah, like more of a hair than a wool. Now that I've got my curls on and my toadstools on and I'm really happy with how it's all looking, I am going to glue it onto the base. You can use pretty much any glue for this, textile glue, fabric glue, PVA glue. I'm going to use Copydex, which is I think it's latex based glue. I like it. It's quite a permanent glue. There we go. Just cover my base in that. And figure out which way I want to pop it on, and then I'm just going to pop that on. I'm going to let that dry for about an hour, and I might go get a peg and just hold that on there. But once that's on, you'll have your beautiful little woodland toadstool scene, unless you go for the slightly more psychedelic magic toadstools. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And don't forget, if you do follow along with this, tag us on Instagram at The Prolific Crafter so we can see all your magical makes. Don't forget to subscribe. See you again very soon. Happy crafting. Bye.